Hi, thanks for joining me. In this video, I want to focus on creating color and color variations through the use of shading, blending, and color washes. I'm going to do a demonstration of one of my urban expression paintings. I'm going to apply these techniques to the painting. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to sketch out very quickly what I want to do here. Okay, just a rough sketch. I've dropped these into my composition grid. Everything works pretty well. It's all based on quarters and thirds on the canvas, something we went over in the first video. So anyway, I've got the composition where I'm comfortable with it. I've got a nice rough sketch in place. Now we're going to draw it in, and then we're going to start with some color. I'm going to go ahead and put in some of the lines. Now I need to make these initially very thick, because I come in and I rework and taper these lines, making some portions of them very thick and others very thin. It allows me to create perspective and the depth. Might seem a little awkward at first, but believe me, when these lines are all shaved and cut and tapered, it gives it a pretty nice look. This is a little different than a conventional painting. If I was doing a landscape or seascape or even some abstract work, I wouldn't be putting lines in like this to guide me. Okay, we're going to use a titanium white, matte medium. With this, we're going to go ahead and start to cut our lines. Put nice tapers on them, cut the edges. This not only is a lot of fun, but it's really a good exercise in learning how to use a brush. I don't really have a predetermined idea of what I'm going to do with these lines. I just take it as it goes. See, I can taper this line right here, start out large. Can actually create quite a bit of movement with it. I'm going to leave the top part here thick and have it thin out as it comes around the corner here. It actually gives us that curve we're looking for. Okay, so there you have it. I put the white in, I've cut the lines and tapered them the way I want them to be. I'm going to have to do it one more time to just completely cover up the black. And as soon as I've got that done, then we're going to go over a couple of things and then jump into the actual applying the color to this. Because that's what this video is all about, is color. Okay, so before we start our demonstration, there's a couple of things I want to go over with you first. I set up this grid starting out with some basic colors, a crimson, cerulean blue, yellow ochre, yellow, and then obviously a black. Need a little medium. Okay, these colors will best illustrate what I want to show you. We'll start out with a little bit of yellow ochre. Make a nice wash. A lot of medium takes it right down. And we will fill in an area right here. As you can see, the paint is so thin, the wash goes right over. You can see the black through it. Now we're going to use these same principles on the demonstration, but I want to show it to you here simply. Just a little blending, not too much. Okay, there we have our base color in of yellow ochre. While that's drying, I also want to talk to you about value. Very, very simply, color intensity. You go from very, very opaque to a wash. Let's use a line here for a moment. Opaque color will cover that right up. We'll take this little corner here. These are good tools to use when you're looking to create depth and perspective. Put the paint on very simply, then I use some medium, and I use the medium to blend it up. You're going to get brush strokes. You just keep working it until it just starts to get a little bit tacky. Then you can pull the brush strokes right out. But anyway, what I'm trying to show you here is value. We start out dark, it comes forward. Now this corner here, to look at it, it appears to move down. Like this area here is higher than this. I always like to keep my eraser around, clean off these spots. This is also something I use in the urban expression paintings, simply wiping the paint off. You can actually wipe it off here, and then you go over into a lighter area and actually deposit it down. So nice effect there right away. Okay, now our yellow ochre appears to be relatively dry. I'm going to take some cerulean blue, do the same thing, create the wash, a lot of medium, a little bit of paint. You can always add to it. And I'm going to take this section right here. As you can see how thin this actually you can make this. Start out nice and thin. I'm going to blend the edge. I'm going to start to increase the value a little bit. Bring the value up and now, as you can see, as the one color overlaps the other color, I'm creating a third color. I've got the yellow ochre, the blue, and this is making a pale green. Okay, now that our cerulean blue is dry, I'm going to go in here and grab some of this crimson. Again, create a wash, thin it down with medium. Now if you want to blend the edges, very simply use medium to do it. Pick up the value just a little bit, increase it. Okay, and obviously we overlap these two washes, we combine the colors, and it creates another color for us. Take the same crimson red, I come over here where the blue is overlapping. As you can see, the red overlapping the blue, you combine the two washes, I pick up some purple. Okay, now we can take our red, increase the value of it, just like we did here. Starts out very dark and gets light. We're going to do the same thing here. It edges out nicely, and as you can see, starts to create movement. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with the cerulean blue. Just increase the value of it. A little carried away there. Okay, now we're going to increase the value of the yellow ochre. Do the same thing. Okay, we're going to increase the value here of this red. Now just here alone, using three basic colors, red, blue, and yellow, between adjusting the value of it and the blending, you can see what happens in the variety already that you've created in different shades and colors. Now I'm going to introduce a couple of secondary colors, and same thing, thin them out with the medium. It's one of my favorites, burnt sienna. Okay, here we're going to pick up a little bit of phthalo green. This color makes for a great wash. Some of these colors are more transparent than others. Here we have a nice deep red color. Just increase the value of it and you start creating depth. Take this burnt sienna. The minute you attach a little bit of black to it, it turns right into a nice deep brown. One thing when you're working with washes, you have to be patient. You can't rush this process. You need to let them dry. You need to overlap. There's many times that if I don't get the value I want, I'll let it dry, I'll go back in it over and over until I get there. Now this little brown corner I just put in, a little bit lighter than I'd like to see it yet. I'll let it dry, then I'll go back in again and again. And you keep putting layers on it until you reach the value that you want. Okay, now that this is dried up, I'm going to hit that one more time. Pick up this nice brown color. Need a little medium on the other side. this right in like so. Take a brush with a little medium on it, just hit the edge. That gives you a nice blend. Okay, now that I've shown you how I create the washes, how I overlap them to create that large variety of color, different ranges of color, different values of color, we're going to take these ideas, these techniques, we're going to apply them to our demonstration, and you'll see how it works out. I've set up my colors: yellow ochre, cerulean blue. I've got a light and dark version of a red, a Payne's gray, and a titanium white. These are the colors we talked about earlier. These are the same colors we're going to apply to this. We're going to start using a little bit of matte medium. I'm going to put in a base of yellow ochre. I think what I'm going to do is this is going to be more yellows fading into darker earth tones here, a nice neutral color in the center, and then we're going to fade into the greens and blues on the other side. I think that'll be a good arrangement to help illustrate how we use the colors. So we're going to start right here with a yellow ochre. A nice yellow ochre base is really good. Yellow ochre is a very opaque color, so when you make a wash out of it, it's going to hold up good against what I put on top of it. And of course you can make adjustments on these colors as you go. You know, if you decide you want to alter this a little bit or that. Just don't forget, the one thing we are doing and trying to accomplish, we're trying to take a two-dimensional surface and give it a three-dimensional appearance. Now, as I'm going back, I want the colors to be not quite so intense, so I put more medium to it, I thin it out, make it even less and less pigment in the wash. And the farther it gets away, the lighter it gets. These here, we're going to add some even stronger colors that'll bring them forward. Now, even though I'm putting yellow ochre over here as an earth tone and some greens and blues over here, I still want to put a little bit of yellow ochre on this side, some of those greens and blues over here. That'll pull that all together, so I'm not separating the picture by separating color. I'm going to thin this way down because I don't want too much of it. Don't forget, this yellow ochre, I can very quickly turn into a green by putting a blue wash over it. Here we're going to put a nice cerulean blue wash in. Not too dark at first, I want to see where it goes. Okay, looks like this has dried up pretty well. Now we're going to pick up the intensity of the color, the value. We're going to increase it. Again, this one is set back, this one is set even farther back. I don't want to get too intense and don't increase the value on them too much, because that'll help us give us the depth that we're looking for also. Now we thin the wash. Let's say we take some of this yellow area here. Now I can write over the yellow, it'll fade into a nice green. This cerulean blue, putting another layer of it on there, will increase its value also. And of course we're going to put a little bit over here too. Being that this face is farther forward than this one and these, this side will have to be dark in order to set it back. When you do this, you'll see when these layers start overlapping each other, they create such a variety of colors. Very, very thin. Take your time. You have to be patient with it. See, just a little bit of color, a very light blend. Now already I've got all kinds of variations there. Very, very slowly darkening up those eye sockets there because they're recessed. Also starting to set myself up a little bit here for the negative light. This side is light, it gets darker, 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 and then it's eventually going to get light again in a reverse color. So you'll see that later on as I put it together. Using the matte medium makes this blending so easy, and because you're using washes, just little by little, step by step, this is going to be a really enjoyable experience. Okay, so now we've got two of our primary colors, yellow and blue, in place. Combining the wash of yellow, combining the wash of blue, It's also given us a variety of greens and every shade in between. What we're going to do now is we're going to introduce some more colors to it. I've added a ultramarine blue, which is a dark blue, and my favorite, burnt sienna. These are colors I like to use, burnt sienna especially, and we're going to introduce those into this. Okay, the burnt sienna is going to go over on this earth tone side. You can even bring a little bit of it over here, putting it on top of that cerulean blue. This gives us a nice steel green. Okay, we're going to add a little bit in here. Just add it slowly, go a little bit at a time. Take a minute to look at it and watch, you'll see what you need. Now I'm going to add some burnt sienna in this midsection because this is where I'm going to end up showing you the negative light. So just bear with me as I proceed with these. The midsection is dark. And while you're doing this, you have to be thinking all the time of your light source. Where's the light coming from? Okay, while I'm waiting for that burnt sienna to set up a little bit, I'm going to go in here and pick up some of this dark blue. Makes a beautiful wash, this color. Very transparent to begin with. Don't worry if that wash doesn't appear dark enough to you. If you don't like it once it's dry, just put another layer on. Nice blending. Okay, now we've put in some different colors. We've got our basic, we've yellow ochre, cerulean blue. We've created some nice blues and greens and yellows with that. Added in the darker blue and the burnt sienna. I've done some shading with the colors. Now that I've got all this in place, I have to stop and take some Payne's gray and start using it to define the position of some of this subject matter. Same thing, I'm going to use some medium. Like for instance, I was saying that this face is in front of this one. It's going to throw some shadow here. I very seldom use black. I like to use Payne's gray all the time. First of all, Payne's gray has got a nice blue base to it. And unfortunately, when you use like Mars black, when you use a direct black, paint something in black, looking at the painting when it's complete, it actually looks like there's a hole there. Because black just allows no reflection whatsoever. Okay, here's the face, sticks it in front of the hair. See the face in the front throws shadow on the one behind it. You can see what happened here. Suddenly this one comes forward, that one goes back. How that creates depth and perspective. And that doesn't apply only to the Payne's gray, it applies to any of the colors you use. As you make it darker, it's going to go back. Doesn't matter if it's dark blue, dark red, it's irrelevant. Again, this is going to be our negative light area. Okay, now we also have a couple of shadows. One is going to be right here. beautiful how this stuff blends. Now we're going to get involved a little bit into some of the reds. Pretty nice color. It's called Permanent Rose. It's almost like a concentrated pink. Pink's not really my favorite color, but this is so transparent. Makes such a beautiful wash. Use it as a wash on top of other colors. Variations are just amazing. And I think we're going to use that over here. These work especially nice because we're also using the white of the canvas that's shining through these colors. So we actually have a white background that we're working off of. Okay, now we're going to put a little into our cerulean blue. This is going to be really nice. Creates a lot of rich purple colors. As you can see, when I put this Permanent Rose on top of the yellow ochre, it creates an orangish glow. When I put it on top of the blue, it turns into purple. And then when you run these two variations together, the amount of colors you're coming up with is crazy. Okay, now we've got a little Permanent Rose here, some here. I like to put a little bit of a color in each one for the simple reason that colors reflect just like light and ties the picture together really, really nicely when you show that. A little bit here, not too much, because it's way off in the distance. We don't want to drown that in color, lose the perspective value of it. Okay, now I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to put some Payne's Gray in the background areas. Right now the white is becoming an obstacle because it's keeping me from seeing the depth. And I'm sure I'm going to change that from Payne's Gray to something else at a later date, but right now I have to get rid of that white. Overwhelming as far as focusing on the color when I've got so much white. You can use any color. I like to use Payne's Gray because that won't influence my decision on what I'm going to use later. Here's something I like to do. Use a wet brush to take out the color while it's still wet. Now these white lines that I put in here, I can go in afterwards. If I put a color over that, then it's going to give me some nice variations in the hair. Here I'm not sure yet, so I'm just going to do a blend and then let nature take its course. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the eraser. And you can see how that works. It adds a nice layer. Thing here, we do a nice blend. I'm not convinced what I'm going to do here yet. Okay, now I've got the background in. I've got the Payne's gray in. It's blocking out those white areas. Now I can focus on adding not only more color variations into it, but now I can start thinking about highlighting and so on. Once the subject matter is complete, we're going to go into these background areas and we are going to put some lighting in them. But for right now, we need those stark white areas out of the way so we can focus on the color. Okay, the next color we're going to use is this deep burgundy color. I'm going to introduce it into these darker areas first, keeping our light source in mind all the time. Even now you can see we have such a large variety of color variation. Take your time with the blending, there's no rush. When you've got this much medium mixed in with a painting, you've got time. Okay, now I'm going to switch this to black and white for a minute. Without the color, you'll see the values we've created with the color. You know, dark blue, dark maroon, it'll give you better insight as to when you're applying the color. You have to let not just the color influence what you're doing, but you also need to be thinking of the value all the time. Just like you need to be thinking of the light source and everything else you've got going on. Okay, back to color, let's proceed. Right here, We're going to put background in and then have it blend. Okay, there we go. That's good for now. That way I'm shading this so it's going farther back. We're going to do a light shade here. Got to be careful, you don't want to drown the subject matter right out, but you do want to show a little bit of depth in there. Just the blending and shading on this alone, so much fun. Okay, we're making good progress here, but we're going to stop on that for a moment. Now we're going to focus on the features. Eyes, noses, mouth. Right now I want to start putting some basic colors in, and then we'll get that to a certain point, and then we'll go back to see what we have here. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a small wedge brush because I need that tiny sharp edge. I'm going to take some titanium white, mix it with the Payne's gray because I need to tone it down. This is going to be the whites in the eyes, but I have to put a base color in first, which is going to be this gray. Okay, now I'm going to put in eye color. Eye color is very important. Okay, now I'm pulling out a cadmium red. I'm going to beef up this wash a little bit, create a little bit more value. I want a stronger color here. We're going to tone down the wash just a little bit here. This is going to be the most pronounced figure. Then we're going to go back to our rose color. I'm going to bring in some raw sienna. I need a real mild earth tone, and yellow ochre is just too intense for that. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray and do a little bit more shading. This is going to help us define the position, which ones are forward, which ones are back. It's also going to help in creating a nice three-dimensional look. I like to shade in around the features, the eyes, the lips, the nose. Helps make them stand out a little bit more. Now here, for instance, I know the hair is going to be forward. It's going to throw a shadow onto the face. Okay, now I need some smaller brushes because I want to start working on some of the details. Trying to get the features to look as three-dimensional as possible, making them look round, highlights, shadows. And the first place we're going to start is on these blue lips here. Being that this is the dark side, I'm going to darken up the lower lip, but I'm also going to leave a little light edge around the outside. That's going to help us with our negative light. I'm not too worried about getting too dark because I'm going to put highlights in afterwards. Matter of fact, sometimes you want to actually go a little bit too dark. That's what's going to start making it appear to be. Okay, I'm bringing in some crimson red because we're going to have to start darkening up on these lips. This face, because it's forward, is going to be picking up light from this direction. So we're going to reverse this process that we did here. Okay, we're going to increase the value on this because this of course is farther forward. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of crimson while this is still wet. Try to darken up that upper lip. Do the same thing with this one. As you can see here, just by darkening this upper lip and leaving this one light for a moment, okay, you can see that lower lip comes out a little bit. Now this face has a light source coming in this way, as this one does also. Doing all these things, the shading, the highlights, the negative lights, that's what takes these faces and moves them back and forth in position. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to use this same raw sienna as I put on this originally, but not as much medium, which increases the value. It's not quite as transparent, has more pigment in it, which of course makes color stronger. Same thing, you can see this side of the face is lit up. This is where the light's coming from. So we're going to darken this side, and we're still going to leave a little edge there for the negative light. This one in the background here, you can see the lights coming in from right here. Upper lip gets darkened, of course, that side. Okay, that same raw siennas will go on the eyelids here. Trying to stay a little bit with the paint scheme of the face. Now even this face here that's set way back, I hit the outside edge with just a little bit of raw sienna. It takes that blue into a green. Suddenly that face moved up a little bit. It's got a little reflection on the outside, but it doesn't stand out. So I'm very comfortable with the way this goes back and forth over here already. These eyes are going to be brown over here. Take a little burnt sienna, a little Payne's gray. You can come up with all kinds of shades of brown and mixing them together. This face here is a little bit farther back, a little less light. Put a little bit more Payne's gray in there. While I'm waiting for this to dry, I want to start putting some color into the hair. Because as I take all these features and start working on them, as you can see, it starts to pull it all together. Okay, I'm going to take a little yellow ochre, very intense color. Give it a little burnt sienna, not too much. This creates a very subtle orange color. Now I'm going to take some burnt sienna and just a pinch of red. Okay, now we're going to darken up some more, added a little bit of red to it. A little medium for blending. Now we have the color here, we have it here. You have to keep some consistency. Again, we're going to take the wet brush, the eraser brush, pull some paint out, helps us create some lines. And again, eraser brush. Now while I've got this maroon color out, I want to put a little bit in here. And I'm also going to put some in here. That adds a little bit of color to this dark spot. Perfect. Wow. Okay, good. That's good. That little bit of dark red in there just gave that life and perspective all at the same time. Again, we're adding a little bit more red into this face here. Gives it a nice three-dimensional look here. Here you can see where it's lacking now. So we're going to start to put a little bit of coloring in the eyes. Like everything else, the eyes are going to have highlights. Light actually travels through them. But I like to go around the outside edge, darken them up, leave the area here where the light's hitting, coming underneath the lid. It creates light on the inside. Now we're going to lend this eye to a little bit more bluish. I'm going to use cerulean blue there. And I'm really jumping in with straight color. Hasn't been reduced with medium yet. Now these eyelids, we're going to lend to some purple on those, but before I do that, I'm going to also give them a dark area. 3/4 of the way. A little blend on both sides. Just helps give them some form. Now these rose lips here, I've got a little bit of red and blue washes here creating some purples, and I want to just get into the dark side here a little bit. Not a lot because I like that rose, but just enough to tone that down a little bit. Little by little, putting darks in, putting lights in. Okay, well, I've got this deep maroon out. I'll go in here and just lay a little bit more into the lips. Make them dark a little at a time. Overlapping washes. I continue to go over it, over and over again, until I feel I've reached a point where it's where it needs to be, really. Here we're going to put a little blue in here. I'm actually going to give it a turquoise tint, which will work nice with this steel green that we have here. If I take that cerulean blue, put it down, let it dry, and then I go over with a phthalo green, which is a very, very transparent color, you end up with a turquoise that's just fantastic. Okay, and while this is still wet, okay, now as we get towards the outside of the canvas here, I like to increase the value, make the colors darker, and we're also going to use a little burnt sienna on these lips here over the raw sienna. As the eyeball gets underneath the lid throws a shadow on it, so it's going to be dark. The light's coming down. Okay, now I'm going to use a couple of small brushes. And I'm going to start putting some of the white in the eyes. We darken that up here as it moves and goes around behind the head. Same thing here. We're going to put a little perspective in here right away. Well, we've got quite a bit of it filled in. I have to stop right now because one thing I do is I take some watered down version of a Mars Black, and I have to clean up these pupils here. As you can see, these get kind of beat up with the application of the color. It's very important that these are, for me, in this style painting, that these are not only done in Mars Black, but that they're very neat and clean. I also like to put some ribbing in the lips, just to, I don't know, it gives it a nice look, texture. Okay, now I'm going to put some reflection in the eyes. I'm going to start off with a little aqua green. Just follow the curvature, the roundness of the eye. Just take a rough brush, scrub it so to speak. Then I'm going to do the same thing here right away. Scrub it a little bit so it fades down. Hard edge on top, fade it down on the bottom. I'm going to use some direct titanium white. I'm going to put some direct reflections in there. And I also have to up the intensity here on the eye white. And there you go. Without getting too elaborate, we put in a little eyelid glare and then a direct reflection from light. It gives them a nice glassy look. Okay, now we're going to do these also. I just need to put a little bit of color. Differentiate a little bit between these two. And this one here, we're going to drop in a little bit of yellow. By having the same base color in these eyes, by putting a light green wash on this and a yellow wash on that, they're very similar, but yet they have a nice distinct color. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put the eyelid glare. Same here. Okay, and now just a direct reflection, straight titanium white. Okay, now we're going to work on these lips. Very easy blending. I'm going to put a dark area in here and keep pulling that down a little bit. Same thing here. And now I'm just applying some dark center areas. This just gives us that nice rounded look. Negative light on one side, dark in the center, and then light on the other side makes it round. And to do that, we have to put something like here. And still it looks round, but as it comes here, it flattens out. The light's not telling us what it is. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of highlighting on the lips. The curvature here, and that's where we're going to pick up some reflection. Break up some of the hard edges on this. And this face here, we have the light coming in on a 45-degree angle. Put a little spot there. Same thing, this face is on the left. This here, I have to glance at the face for a minute just to feel where this needs to be. A very simple reflection really has a tremendous effect. Okay, so now that I've got the lips done, got the eyes done, they're highlighted, my next step in this progression is going to be put highlights in the faces themselves. Highlights on the high points of the nose, cheeks, and so on and so forth, even the hair. Before I do that though, I have to again step up some of the shading. Still have areas like up in here that need to be darker so I can get that hair to come forward more. It throws a shadow. Without the shadow there, it makes it flat. So I need to put that shading on there, bring that three-dimensional look. You can see the result. It just instantly puts the face back and brings the hair up over the face. keep pushing that center one farther back and farther back, which is nice. It's where I want it. Put a little shadow in here. I've got to give a little dimension to what's going on here too. See how quickly that face just dropped back? And we're going to give a little dimension to the hair right away. Okay, now here I want to really put a good shadow in this hair. I really want to bring that hair forward. Beautiful. Very mild wash in here. Because over here we have a line. I'm going to use the line and just do a shadow by it. Okay, now I've got to drop a little bit of negative lighting into these some of these areas. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a little bit of bright aqua green. See, now here's this negative lighting I was talking about. Here's the light side. As it goes around, it gets darker and darker, and actually goes around back where it's completely dark, where you wouldn't even see an edge. But you put the negative lighting in there, and it makes it really round. It gives it a beautiful look. Okay, we have to increase the edge here. We're going to use negative light to do that. Okay, now I'm going in with some burnt sienna. Need to basically darken up some of the outside edges. Okay, now they're all connected with color. They all have greens, blues, and everything. Again, cooler on this side than that side. Okay, now I'm carefully going to start dropping in some highlights into the face. Okay, there's a good highlight there. Okay, same thing over here. I have to say, this is really a fun part for me. I always enjoy doing this. Okay, so we're just about there. I need to put a little background color in the dark areas, and I've decided on red. So as I put the red in the background, I'm starting at the canvas edge and I'm moving towards the middle, and I'm having it fade into the dark as it gets towards the middle. That will help me retain the three-dimensional look I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, now there's only one thing left to do. Okay, our painting is complete. I showed you how I mix washes and how to create color value with them. I showed you my techniques of blending and shading with these washes and applied them to our painting to create color and color variations. I had a great time with this. I hope you did too, and until next time, enjoy.